Hi guys, welcome back to Kids for Code. Today we will be learning about file I/O. So first we're going to review the summary questions. Number 1, how does linear search work? Linear search checks each element starting from the front until we find the target or reach the end. How does binary search work? Binary search repeatedly divides the area you're searching in half until the target is found, checking the middle of the array and comparing it to the target value and splits. What kind of arrays can be binary search? Only sorted arrays can be binary search. Which is usually faster, binary search or linear search? Binary search is faster than linear search. So the first step for file I/O is to create a text file. So a text file is a kind of computer file that is structured as a sequence of lines of electronic text. So for Windows, how we would create a text file is we go to our project folder, right-click and select New, then select Text Document. For Mac, we go to Applications, then to Text Edit, or use Spotlight, press Command Spacebar to search, find, and open Text Edit, then save the file in our project folder. It's important to remember to save the file after editing it each time before running your program. So now we are going to talk about a part of file I/O, which is file input. We can take input from a file. So there are many steps to doing this. So first we need to remember to import the java.io and scanner package at the top of our program. We will also be using a try-catch block, which is required when reading a file, and we'll also use the scanner class. And for the files that we want to read in, they must be put in the same folder as our project. So here is an example of how we'd read in a file. So you have import java.io.asterisk semicolon, this statement, and import java.util.scanner. And import java.io.asterisk is important and is needed to take in input from a file. So then we have our main method, and inside of that we have string name equals example.text. Now this is the name of the text file that we want to read in from. Then we're going to have our variable that we use to get information from the file, and we're going to call it scanner file in, and we're going to make it equal to null. And null is essentially nothing, so we're just declaring the variable without assigning it a value. And here is a try-catch statement. So the way try-catch works is it tries whatever inside the try part, and if it fails to do that, then it runs catch. But if it successfully does what it tries to do, then it will just continue with the program. So we have our variable file in, and we're making it equal to new scanner, new file, and name, which is the variable we declared here, which is equal to example.text. So we're trying to locate the file example.text. But if we fail and there's a file not found exception error, see, this is inside the parentheses, we have the throw exception, which is like an error. And this is what happens if we fail what's in our try part. So if we fail our try part, an error will throw. And catch, if it finds out that a throw exception happens, it'll run this. So what happens in this try catch command, it tries to locate the file example.text. If it fails, it'll print out file not found, and system.exit will execute, which exits the program. But however, let's say it tries to locate example.text, but it succeeds, it will ignore the catch part and keep running. And there are methods to taking in the file's input. So first we have hasNextInt, which will return true if the next set of characters that I read in are integers. We use this when reading a file of numbers. hasNextDouble is the same but for doubles, and hasNextLine is the same but for strings. So we have nextInt, which scans the next set of characters of the input as an integer, and nextLine, which scans the next line of characters of the input as a string. So here we have a while loop, and the file is equal to it's file.hasNextInt. So it will return true if the next set of characters that are read in are integers. So it examines the file. If the next set of characters are integers, it will print out the integers that it just read in here, which scans the next set of characters of the input as an integer. So these characters will be printed out if there's a next line. So what will happen is it'll keep running as long as there are lines that contain integers. And then once there are no more lines that contain integers, it will stop running, and that's it. So basically, this will essentially just copy the information that's in a file, if that file contains integers. And there are a few things to remember when we read mixed data. It's important to note, to prevent errors, to look at the first data type of file to determine which Boolean method to use. And these Boolean methods are has next int, has next double, and has next line. They are called Boolean methods. And it's important to note that next int takes in only the integer value and not the line break, or the space in the line. Therefore, after you call next int or next double, you must call next line after it, as shown below. And then we have an example. So it says while the file has a next line, so examine, so while there is another line in the file, it will run what's inside the while loop. And here's what the text file looks like, example text file, and here's what the output will be. So while there's a next line, so it starts, sees there is a line, and this line says Bob. So string name equals in that next line, which is Bob, and next line, file in dot next line causes there to take into account the line break, so it will space down to 50, and int score equals the next integer, which is 50, so int score equals 50, but does not take into account the line break, so file in dot next line, break the line down to Joe. But we have a print statement which prints the value of name plus score, so it will print out Bob, which is what string name currently equals, and it'll print out 50, which is what score currently equal, so we'll have Bob's score 50. And then we'll continue doing this with Joe and 100, Annie and 90, and Susan 100 until it gets to this line, does not detect another line, and then stops executing. And the final output of this is Bob score 50, Joe score 100, Anne score 90, and Susan score 100. And as we mentioned in the try-catch statements, that Java can throw exceptions. And this happens when there's some kind of error that happened while the code is running. For example, arrays will throw exceptions if you try and use an index that's not an array. Reading files will throw an exception when it cannot find the file that you want to load. By default, an exception causes your program to stop running and crash, and it will produce an error message inside of your console. So we have an example of how the exception causes your program to stop running and crash. So we have our main method, and inside of it, we have a comment saying that our computer does not have a file that says I do not exist.txt. So when we try and locate it, it does not exist, so we fail at it, and a throw exception happens, and then the code stops executing, and this print statement, I will never be printed, is never printed. So to avoid these crashes and continue our program, even if there is an exception being thrown, we'll use try-catch statements. So when we write code that Java code that might throw an exception, like using a scanner, we can tell Java what to do instead of crashing. And that's where try-catch comes in. So now we do have this file, and we have it, and we do have a try-catch statement, but we still don't have the file called I don't exist. So it tries to locate the file I don't exist, but it will throw an exception, and catch is looking for an exception, file not found exception to be thrown, and this is the exception that is thrown when the code cannot locate I don't exist.txt or any other file. So it cannot locate the file not found exception is thrown, so it catches it, and then runs this program, could not find I don't exist.txt, and continues with the program. When there's an error, try does not finish executing, stops running the line, and immediately moves on to catch. So system.out.println, I will never be printed, never execute, so I will never be printed, will never be printed out to the console. But if there isn't an exception, Java will run all of the code in try and skip over catch. So it tries to locate the file realfile.txt, which we actually do have in our computer. So it will not throw an exception and continue running the try part. We'll print out find real file found real file.txt. The catch part of the try catch statement is ignored, keeps running, and this print statement is printed, so it prints out I do get printed. Now I will show you an example of file input in Eclipse. So first, in our example, we have the basic shell of our code. We have an import java.util, which you guys are familiar with, statement. And our main method, then we have scanner keyboard equals new scanner. We're establishing our user input. Then we're having string name equal to next line, so we're just taking in input as a string and assigning it the value name, which equals it. But we want to create our text file, so we click new. We go down to file, and parent folder just means the folder that the text file will be created in, and we want it to be created into file IO folder because that's where we're taking in information from the file. So we will name this example.txt or .text, and we'll finish it. So this is what this looks like. So I'm actually gonna write some stuff into it. So I'm gonna write 1 on the first line, second line, 2, 3. You might notice how the text file is similar to the Java file, except it will not run code because it's a text file and not a Java file. And if you see, there's an asterisk above where it says example.txt, and that means we have unsaved changes to do it. With Java files, whenever you have unsaved changes, you can just run your program and it will save it. But you cannot run a text file, so you have to use Control-S if you're on Windows, or Command-S if you're on Mac to save it. You do that, and it is saved. So we are going to start out by creating our second import statement, import java.io. So then we have our import statement. Then we're going to have another scanner, but this is to read in our information from a file, our file example.txt. We're going to have it scanner file, and we're going to have it equal to null. Now we're going to make our try catch statement, and we're going to need curly brackets for this, for the first part. So what we're going to try to do is read from the file. So we're going to have file equals new scanner, and we have parentheses, new file, then we have it equal to name. So this is what we have. Then we're going to have our catch part. If you remember, it is file not found exception. And then we're going to have space E. Then we're going to need another set of curly brackets. So we're going to try to read it, but if we cannot find the file, we're just going to print out something telling them that we could not find the file. I'm just going to print out file not found. And then we just want to stop the program because we want to alter the file, but if there is no file, we can't really do anything. So we're just going to have system.exit, in parentheses, we're going to have -1 to let it know to stop running. So we have our try catch statement, and we're going to test it out. So we're going to run it. So now it will ask me for user input. I do not prompt the user, so I do not see any statement, but I will enter it in. Now I will have example.txt as the file I want to found, and it skips the catch, so it will not print out file not found. And if I had another print statement after the catch statement, it would execute. But let's say I run it, and for some reason I enter something that's wrong. So I just type in G, enter it, and it'll tell me file not found. But now for our demo, you will take information from this text file. So we're going to use a while loop to make sure that we get all the lines and copy it from this text file. So we're going to copy it. So we're going to have while file dot has next int. So while it has next int, but we do not have to worry about having another next line statement because we are not using mixed data. So we're just going to have it like this. Then we have our while loop. And then while that has it, we're actually going to print out. We're actually going to print out file.nextInt. So we're just going to print out the next int in the file. So what we have here is our while loop that will copy the code from our text file. So this time when you run it, and we enter in something in G, this while loop will not run, and it'll print out file not found, and it will exit. Because when we don't have this exit stuff and we try to continue, what will happen is when we run it and I enter it wrong G, it will throw an exception and an error message will appear on the console because there is no file for file.hasNextInt to read, so an error message will occur. So that's why we have system.exit -1. So this will be useful because we do not want errors if we cannot locate the file. So we're going to run it again, but this time what's going to happen is we are going to enter in the proper name of the text file, example.txt, run it, and 1, 2, and 3 are printed. And this has been the file input demo in Eclipse. So we will be now learning about file output. You can also make our own file to write out information to using a FileWriter object. Similar to file input, a try-catch block is also required, but we will be catching an IO exception this time. And all of our file writing code should be inside the try-catch block. As you can see, what happens is we try to create a file using the variable FileWriter to write, creating a new one called filename.txt. We're using toWrite.write, which writes something inside the file. And then to make sure that the information is saved, we use toWrite.close. And then we have our catch part, which looks for an IO exception. And if there is an IO exception, it will print out IO problem and exit the program. So FileWriter takes in a string which represents the name of the file you want to write out to. We'll create a new file with the name which will appear in your project folder. And it's important to notice that you must refresh to see it. And be careful, if a file with that name already exists, it will overwrite that file. So we have a statement FileWriter, and this one's toWrite equals new FileWriter filename.txt. So it's creating a new file called filename.txt, and it will be writing inside that file. So how to use the FileWriter. In order to write on a newly created file, we will use the .write method, which will write a string into a line of our file. The write method is like system.out.print, which does not jump to the next line. In order to jump to the next line, you must add /r/n to the end of the string. On Mac, we just use /n. So for this, toWrite.write, writing this line out to the file, then /r/n. Then we have another one, toWrite.write. This will start on the next line. So to save our file, we need to save the contents of the file with the close method. So it's like saving a document, and it must be at the end of our file writing code. As you can see, we have the statement that creates the new file, and we have our statements that write information inside the file, and then we end it with toWrite.close, which saves the information in the file. So now we will do the demo in Eclipse. So we start with our try statement, and then we're going to make it our curly brackets, and inside that we're going to have FileWriter. We're going to call it file, and we're going to make it equal to new FileWriter. We're going to call it output.txt. And we're going to make sure that we put it inside quotation marks. because otherwise it will have problems reading it. And then we're going to actually write stuff inside of a file. So we're going to have file.write. Inside that, we're going to write, we are outputting information into a file. Then we're going to have another one, which is file.write, make our parentheses, and then inside that, we just treat it like a print statement. And then this file, but as I'm writing this, I forgot something that will allow me to make a space. I need, inside this print statement, \r, \n to make a new line. So now, when I write it, it'll print out this file, but on a new line. So this file is called output.txt. And then to end it, I need file.close. You put it in parentheses, close it out. Then I need to make my catch part. So I'm going to have catch. And then this time it's called IO exception. Inside that, we're going to have print statement. We're just going to say that there is an IO problem. And then we're going to exit our code. We're going to run it, and we're not going to see any changes in our console, but if we refresh the page, what will appear, we need to click on the file and refresh it. So what will appear is output.txt. We open that, and in the file, it says we are outputting information into a file, and it says this file is called output.txt. I hope you had a great day. See you guys next time.